Then there's Black folk time, which is what we call, CP time, colored people time. We're just a little bit late. And then there's Nigerian time.
Nigerian time.
And that means if you show up, you're going to show up sometime. There's no conscious. If we leaving at 8:30, we're not really leaving until 9. I know our coach would say, he would tell the Nigerians, all right, we're going to leave at 9, knowing that we wasn't leaving until 9:30, but he would tell them that just so that we could leave by 9:30. Because if he said 9:30, we need to leave. No, we ain't leaving.
Tell them want to leave at 7.
Yeah, no, there's Nigerian,
You got that. You got that. Expect your Nigerian passport in the mailbox.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to the King Dems Podcast, where we share the stories of extraordinary people and dissect art.
You're live, ladies and gentlemen. You're once again welcome to the King Dems Podcast. And today I have with me a Nigerian by association, but American by nationality.
Yeah.
Make welcome, Dr. Brian Anorld Schwarzenegger. How are you, Dr. Brian? Whoa. Do you want to tell our people why you're Nigerian?
Love to tell people why I feel like Nigerian by association. I had the opportunity when I went to, I grew up here in Denver, Colorado, where I live now. And I decided I wasn't going to go to college. I had no desire to go to college whatsoever. I was going to go to stunt school. I was going to go be a stuntman in Hollywood. And so it just happened to be I was a pretty good athlete and a track athlete. And I was asked if I would come to Azusa Pacific University, which to me was right by Hollywood, which was close enough where I could get to doing stunt stuff. But my mom convinced me to please go to college. And when I decided to go to college, I ended up, on a team that had just had a Nigerian named Innocent Obanuke that had just competed. This was in 1983. So he had just competed in the Olympics in 1980 in Moscow as a sprinter. And he was a connection to back home in Nigeria to bring in more people on. And so the same year that I came on, he had brought his best friend Christian Okoye on, and I ended up living with them for a couple of years. And I ate fufu just about every single day.
Jollof rice.
Had some amazing stew. I have videos that they would probably get mad at that we were sitting back and forth, because that's what we were learning how to do videos. And then Christian Okoye ended up being the Nigerian Nightmare and played for Kansas City Chiefs for 7 years, and the godfather of my kids. And I have a real close tie with Innocent. And then we had people like Patrick Nwanko come on. I ran with him and Sunday Ute and, several Olympians, track Olympians that are from Nigeria back in the 80s and the early 90s. Herbie Akpom. Oh my gosh. And just, I'm thinking of even like the Klima Youssef. I mean, there's just so many that were in and out because Innocent was the Nigerian connection to athletics and to track and field that was in the United States. If you were a Nigerian, you were part of Innocent's world. And so I got to spend a lot of time with some pretty cool, Nigerian folks that were on, not only that I got to run with and work out with every single day, but to become really good friends with. And so I got to hear stories from back home all the time. And
Definitely.
when parents would come out and be able to visit, and I got to take them around and pick them up from the airport, and just part of a culture that I loved. I love the culture. I love the ability to just be real, and, they Innocent would call me Zebra because he said I was half white, half black. And I was striped zebra. So it was, but we had some incredible not only workouts, but we're friends to this day. I do a podcast as well. It's called The Journey to Freedom, where I interview black and brown folks that we talk about not being stuck and how to move forward. And Innocent was one of my favorite podcasts to do, and then so I'll do Christian here in the next couple of weeks. He wanted, Kansas City was in the Super Bowl again this last year for American football. And so Christian does a lot for the organization. In fact, they awarded him a Super Bowl ring last year when he won the Super Bowl, just because he does so much, in his foundation and the things that he does. So just an amazing friend, an amazing family. I consider myself Nigerian by association, just like
Nigerian by association. But really, Nigeria has really great food. really, really fantastic food, and like we've got variety, and our food is healthy. But what would you say is like your best Nigerian food?
Oh my God, just the stew that we had. Now, I'm allergic to fish and like, but they would keep sneaking like starfish and that kind of stuff
The
inside of the
crayfish.
stew. Yeah, inside the stew, and I would start breaking out. I'm like, what are you guys doing? But with the okra and the spices, and then
Yeah.
being able to dip the fufu inside of it and eat. By far, my favorite dish of all. I mean, that was almost every night we would come home and we'd go to the cafeteria, which was the American food, and then they would get mad and say this sucks, and we'd go home and then we would cook up, whatever it was, the chicken and the stew, and the just blend it up and like, oh yeah, that it was so good. And I'm now so my fear now is if I started eating it again, because I was an athlete then, so it didn't matter what you eat, right? Because you're working out, you're burning it off. But if I
Yeah.
eat it now, I'd be like,
Whoa.
oh my God. We had a guy named Blackman Eham. Oh my gosh, he could cook. Like, oh, we would go over there. But I know I would be 400 pounds if I was eating Nigerian food every day right now. So I guess I'm thankful that I'm back off to some stuff. And but they would make fun of me too if I got big doing it. So it is. It's hilarious to think about it.
Our food is actually very rich in carbs and proteins.
Mhm. Yeah.
I've never seen a Nigerian vegan or Nigerian
Oh gosh,
vegetarian.
no. And goat, then we would definitely, Christian would find out ways where can we go buy a goat because that's not American. I mean, when you're in the U.S., you're not eating goat very often unless you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. But there were farms that were close enough to where we were, where they were able to go buy a goat and put it in the freezer and eat goat meat because I didn't grow up on goat meat until I lived with Nigerians. So
But yeah, it's just different from the beef
Mhm.
and chicken. It's quite a nice variety. But there's this would I say slang or popular saying from back home. They say Naijano they carry last. Did they ever tell you that?
Yeah.
Naijano they carry last. And of course you're an athlete, you should know. Like we may not come first, but we never come last.
Yeah.
That's the Nigerian spirit.
No, 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 no. Oh my gosh, yeah.
We'll keep pushing, and I feel like our culture, our tradition is, born out of certain core principles, care, respect, hospitality, hard work, resilience, and a strong connection to faith. Yeah, so those are at the heart of the Nigerian culture.
Absolutely. And I guess that I loved about it, especially with the athletes, right? It didn't matter what part of Nigeria that the athletes came from. And I know there's a lot of tribal,
Yeah.
thought process and because you go by the last name, you're from the north or
Hmm.
you're from the south or you're from the east and
Hmm.
west. And you
Hmm.
can tell, but the camaraderie of it doesn't matter because you're still Nigerian. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
because we still love you. It doesn't matter because we still care about you. The things that you're talking about, the core principles, even though there might be some, tribal, you know, intricacies
Differences.
or intricacies that would say, okay, this tribe, and I'm sure they compete too. So, this tribe's better than your tribe. But in the end, right, in the end, we still love each other. And
Hmm.
which was really neat to see and talk to, and maybe a lot of it was just because they were in the U.S. and they had they were bringing a different culture, but at the same time they would do anything for me and I would do anything for them, and that's
Hmm.
that is.
Nigerians are wonderful people, and we have like really, really talented people, highly talented people, and yeah, that we have that drive as well, and we are proud of our culture, and we're always, very willing to share our culture with the world. We're really
Now,
proud of who we are.
yeah. Now, where the culture clashes, though, is there's white folks time where you're just kind of on time a little early. Then there's black folk time, which is what we call CP time, colored people time, or we're just a little bit late. And then there's Nigerian time.
Nigeria time!
And that means if you show up, you're gonna show up sometime. But if there's no conscious, if we leaving at 8:30, we're not really leaving until 9. I know our coach would just say he would tell the Nigerian, all right, we're gonna leave at 9, knowing that we wasn't leaving until 9:30. But he would tell him that just so that we could leave by 9:30. Because if he said 9:30, we need to leave. No, we ain't leaving.
Tell them we want to leave at 7.
Yeah, no, there's Nigerian. There's yeah.
You got that. You got that. Expect your Nigerian passport in the mailbox. But unfortunately, I cannot tell you when it's arriving because it might just arrive Nigerian time. I got you. I got you. I've got your back like chiropractic.
Ooh, man.
You know, you once again welcome, and you're an author, you're a speaker, entrepreneur, spiritual coach, former world-class athlete, yet you carried all with humility and purpose. So before we jump into your mindset breakthroughs and bold living, who would you say Dr. B is behind the mic and beyond the resume?
Yeah, here's what I'd say. First, I'm a child of God, and that because I'm a child of God, it tells me that I get to serve, and if I can serve in a way that helps others become the people that they want to be, then I'm in the right place. I'm in God's purpose. I'm where
Child of God.
Yeah.
I think
I'm
you stole that. You stole that from my Instagram bio.
Did I? Okay, yeah. So yeah, I did.
On my Instagram bio, the first that is God first.
Absolutely. I'm glad you have that. That is amazing. Then I would say I'm a husband and I'm a father. I have 8 children. I have 16 grandkids. I love my
Now,
family.
now you're Nigerian.
I love my family. I would do anything for my family. They are number one. God first, family second, then all the other stuff that I get to do. And I just turned 60 years old about
Wow.
2 weeks ago. So our
Wow.
birthdays
Happy
are
birthday.
Thank you.
It means you're an Aries as well.
Actually, I'm Pisces. I'm right at the very end of Pisces.
Pisces.
But I'm close. Yeah, when I think about the years that I spent on this planet and the years that I've been able to serve, and now I get to get up every single morning and say, God, what would you have me do today? And whether it's podcasting or speaking or coaching or just loving on my kids, every day is an adventure. Every day is fun. When I think of the people that I get to talk to and the conversations that I get to have, that just they brighten people's life sometimes. When you really start talking about why are you here, and then what are you going to do with what it is that God has put you on this earth to do. And so now I get to start writing books. I just finished my 3rd book this last weekend, and so I'm going to get that published here pretty quick. It's called Be Do Have, Become the Person That You Need to Be in Order to Do what God put you on the planet to do. I wrote a book, There Is No Tiger, which is, we'll probably talk about that a little bit, and then did one on decision making. I don't know how many more I'll write. But I do know that, as long as I have a voice and as long as God will use that voice, you will hear it.
Wow, definitely. And of course, I'm an amplifier of that voice, and helping to separate the voice from the noise. It's quite wonderful to see and observe how fulfilled you are today, but the road to that fulfillment definitely was filled with rough patches. It wasn't a linear straight road.
No. Lots of ups and downs, in order for us to appreciate when things are going well, I think we have to have gone through some stuff. If everything always went well, then we wouldn't be able to appreciate. We wouldn't be able to go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I am so blessed. Because you don't know you're blessed until you know when you're not. You know that, oh my gosh, these are struggles, these are things that I have to do, or when we didn't have any money, or we didn't have, when my kids were growing up, and there were times when I was trying to be an entrepreneur, and our electricity was cut off, and we didn't have what I was typically grown up to be able to do. I live in America. I'm a black man that lives in America. In America, I can say has not been the best place for black men over the last 400 years. It just hasn't been. So I know what it's like to be discriminated against. I know what it's like to be passed over for positions when you're not, just because of the color of your skin, not because of anything of your character or who you are.
I have a dream that one day my young little children will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream.
Amen. And I was just in Alabama. I took a group of black men
Mm.
because my program, Journey to Freedom, is about helping black men get unstuck. And I took a group of 18 men to Alabama about 3 weeks, about the last part of January. And believe it or not, Alabama still feels like we're back in the 1970s in some parts of it. We're in Birmingham and we're sitting on corners, and the minimum wage is $2.15 for people who are working in restaurant scenarios where they're working
No
for
way.
tips. And they're, the young man told me he makes about $500, working full time, about $500 every month. And I'm like, that's like what, 400 pounds or 450 pounds. And like, how do you survive with that? And, there's areas where it's still segregated, where, white folks don't go into that neighborhood, and a school that is all black and doesn't have hardly, had this first white graduate in 2004. In 1997, we're not even 30 years ago, you could be arrested and spend 10 years in jail for having an interracial marriage. This is stuff that still exists in the United States of America. And you go, okay, how do we get past this? How do we educate and move forward? And I'm not saying University of Alabama is there, and there's a lot of really good, black men and women who come out of the University of Alabama. But what about the rest of the state? I went to there's a museum there called the Equal Justice Museum. There's a guy named Brian Stevenson who put together based on, I know there's a movie he did was called Just Mercy, where the guy spent 38 years in jail, and he didn't commit the crime because he was, the black man who was on the corner. That it was just so sad. I interviewed a gentleman from Chicago not too long ago. Spent 19 years in jail in Chicago area, and the day that for murder, and the day that the murder happened, he was actually in jail. So he was in jail. The murder happened, and they make him have the crime for 19 years. He just got out, and he's not bitter. But like, how does that happen? So we're not where we should be yet. We'll get there eventually, I suppose. But yeah, slavery was not a good look. It was not a good thing across the entire world. I mean, the whole world dealt with it, and folks that believe that there's lack, right? That God didn't give us enough resources, and if you have and I don't, I have to take for you, and then all of a sudden you won't have it. Where I serve a God that if you have, I can have, and God says we all can have.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so many people who don't believe that. We got this, you're lucky.
Scarcity mindset.
Yeah, scarcity mindset, and that's where our divide is in America right now. When we think of, the whether, I don't care whether you're a Democratic or Republican. I'm sure you guys hear about it over in the UK, but it's all based on, whether we like Trump or we don't like Trump, is all based on this fear that, we have this thing called DEI, which is basically based on, discrimination, make sure people have
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
and inclusion. And so it's still needed here. There's not as many opportunities in some ways, but if you look at people who are worried about it, they're worried, well, if I give King Dems a job, then that means I don't get a job. But isn't there enough jobs for everybody? I believe there is, but we're not in the same thing. But it's just, yeah, this whole scarcity mentality that just makes it tough. And so, my job is to say, okay, let's take this scarcity mentality that's here and this rise above. That let's set yourself apart so far that there's no choice but you. And we can do that because God has given us the tools to be able to do it. And sometimes we just don't know because we don't believe or we haven't been exposed to. We have an issue with our, and maybe you can tell me if it's like this in the UK or in India, but black women in America, 50%, almost like 49.8% of black women in America who are above the age of 40 have never been married. And I'm like, what do you mean you've never been married? And then out of that 40, 45, 49% that never have been married, 75% of them have at least one child. So the family unit in America has been destroyed. It has been, black women don't believe that black men, are good for them, that are going to take care of them, and black men believe that black women don't respect them. And we took that away with our integration practices. When we were segregated back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the black family was strong. Kids were
Okay.
learning. They were testing above what white kids were testing. And then we decided we had to integrate everybody, and we sent black kids to schools where they weren't wanted and were stuck in the back of rooms and weren't educated. And then we took black men out of households, for our welfare system that we have here. And so we got a lot of work to do. We do, but it's work that
Yeah.
is worth doing.
It's wild. It's quite similar, in the UK as well, and it's very, very sad. It's really sad to observe seeing the disintegration of the family system. I am a social scientist. Aside from the fact, a lot of people know me for my work in public accounting, but I do have a first degree in economics and deep courses in psychology, sociology, anthropology, demographics and social statistics. So I am a social observer. I see what's happening in society, and see the trends, in a chronological order. And this is something I've asked, a couple of previous guests on the podcast, right? Things seemed to have been better, or life seemed to have been better with, um, the generation of our great grandparents, but it seems like humanity or the human race seems to be deteriorating, even from the point of view of a mental capacity standpoint. We seem to be getting dumber, but we have more information easily accessible. We are in the age of artificial intelligence, but we are also in the age of increased human foolishness.
Mm.
That doesn't make it make sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's so much information that we don't know how to take that information and utilize it for better. We think the more and more information that we have, the better that we're going to be, but we don't even know how to have a relationship, right? We'll sit at a restaurant and we'll pick up these devices and we'll pretend like the people that are outside of our circle are way more important than the people that we're right with. And God created us for relationship. He created us to create. He created us to be in proximity to each other, and we're trying to find ways to not be. We try to get on these social media things, and people put their best lives on there, and then we want to compare our life to a life that's not even real. It's not that's what.
Fake plastic.
Oh my gosh, it's sad, but I believe there's hope. I mean, I believe that we will go through some kind of revolution or revelation or whatever we're going to call it that will say, wait a minute, I need you more than I need the people who are on the other side of a social media post. I need you. I need to be in proximity. I need to be in relationship. I need to be in community. I think that's one thing that's beautiful about the Nigerian culture is I think you guys are still in community way more than we are in America, where we decided that we're going to roll up our garages, we're going to shut down garages, and we're not going to talk to the people who even live close to us, in our communities and act like the other people don't exist. And so I don't think that happens as much in the Nigerian culture as it does.
No, no, it doesn't. And I think it was probably like one of the culture shocks that I did have when I moved to the UK. Like that lack of what I say humanity in people. It's so horrible in the UK that anyways, maybe in London, especially in London, you get into an elevator with somebody, you greet the person good morning or good afternoon, and they just ignore you like you did not just speak. I'm like, are you okay? Like where did politeness, run to? Like just be respectful. A person is just saying a greeting to you, but you see a lot of people just get plugged in. The public transport system in the UK is very, very efficient. You don't even need a car to live in London, but you get to the train station, most people are plugged in. They can't even hear you. Like it's like robots walking all around, and people seem to be very rude, very rude. If you get to meet the kids in this country.
Oh, we act like we don't have time, and that everything has to happen right now, and we get so
Mhm.
frustrated. I wrote a book. It's called There Is No Tiger. And it's about overcoming overthinking and controlling anxiety because we are anxious people. We are people that are always worried about these things that are probably never going to happen. It's because I
Mhm.
believe we're not in a relationship. And I felt myself when I had won this trip. and it was like a sales trip thing where we got to go to St. Martin's. We got to go to the Caribbean, and
Interesting. Tell me about it.
I got to take my team to the Caribbean. So we're going to go on this vacation. And all these things started going, like the limo that was supposed to pick us up was late. And then, are we going to miss our plane? And then one of my team members didn't have their passport or birth certificate. They were trying to run home and get it. And then, so then we had to
Chaos.
fly from here to I think it was Orlando first. And then Orlando, something was up with the plane and we had to sit on the tarmac. And then, we ended up going to Puerto Rico and then we end up at the island. And then we get to the island and the rental car vans that I had reserved were, because we were late, were given away to somebody else. And so now we're trying to get to our hotel or accommodations. And we get to the accommodations and they say, we don't have your reservations, and so now this is building up. I'm getting upset. This has been, 17 hours of traveling or whatever it is. And I'm like, what is going on? And I start yelling at the hotel concierge clerk or whatever it is. And I'm like, we got to do this. And where are you going to leave it? And we're not going to sleep on the beach. And I'm not even noticing the surroundings, that I'm on one of the most beautiful places on earth. I'm just mad because all these things are going wrong. And out from the side, there's I guess the head concierge, he comes running over to me, and I see him from down, and I'm ready to light into him, right? He's the boss, so I'm going to tell him. And he's like, what's wrong with you, man? And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, the Caribbean accent. You clocked it. You clocked it.
What's wrong with you, man? And I'm like, and I started telling him, he goes, settle down, man. He says, here on the island, there are no tigers. And he said that to me. I'm like, what do you mean? He says, no, is a shark going to eat you? I'm like, no, a shark's not going to eat me. There's no tigers. He says, is an elephant going to stomp on you? And I'm like, no. So now my blood sugar's coming. I mean, I'm coming back down. He goes, we will take care of you. And it might not be right now, but we will take care of you. And I said, okay. I'm kind of getting some assurance there. And he says, because here on the island, man, there are no problems, only inconveniences. And then it hit me like, yeah, there's way too much stress in this situation for me to be able to blow up at her. She didn't do nothing. She just came to work today. She came, and now she's trying to solve my problem. And that's probably 30 years ago. And I have lived my life now saying, wait a minute, the person that I'm across from is way more important than my emotions, than my attitude, than my belief. If I can treat her right, God's going to work this out. We're on the island. We're going to find a place to sleep. We're not, and even if we have to sleep outside, it's not like it's 20 degrees and it's cold and we're going to freeze to death. We're on this beautiful island that's beaches.
And the weather is good.
Yeah. So, and it worked out. And we had an amazing trip. But that was such a lesson to me that said people are way more important than our circumstances. And that's what allowed me. I wrote the book, and these are some exercises that we can do, because we get so caught up in our own story and our own selves and our own, and if we just took a minute to say, man, God, I'm not showing up on this island in a wheelchair. I'm not showing up because somebody passed, there's so many blessings that we have before we even start out in the morning when we get up. I got eyes to see, I got ears to hear. I got legs to walk. I can take
Count your blessings, name them one by one.
God,
And it will surprise you what the Lord has done.
Woo! What do we have to be upset about? I mean,
and you very much align with my philosophy. I always say this on every podcast. Gratitude is good attitude. Gratitude is good attitude. And when you practice gratitude, everything begins to shape up for you nicely.
Even the numbers align, right? Even, if you start out with the gratitude, what we used to say, my gratitude determines my altitude and I'm flying high, because if you do and you count those things, you go, okay, wait a minute. What is it that I can now move through this world? And then you start thinking about others, right? You start thinking, if I can make a difference in your life today, then my life is going to be better. My life is going to be fulfilled. My life. And I think we get so stuck in, somebody told me not too long ago, he said, enough is not an amount. Enough is not an amount. It's a relationship with where you're at right now. And if you can always say, I have enough, that doesn't mean you don't strive for more. It doesn't mean you don't treat. But if you're always striving and you're saying it's not enough, you'll never get there because you'll always be looking for more. But if you can come to grips with enough is what I have right now, and now I can move forward, the amount of that you get that comes from that just it happens exponentially instead of incrementally. And I think so many of us strive for enough as being, oh, I got to hit this amount, I got to hit this goal, I got to hit this. I don't even like goals. I like outcomes. I like striving for stuff because if I put a date on a goal, God's the one who's control if I'm going to hit that at the time that He wants, because His timing, not my timing. And so I don't try to put a date on everything that I'm trying to do. I try to say these are the outcomes and the things that I would like to happen. But God, you kind of you lead the way on how I'm going to get there and when I'm going to get there. Because if I haven't become the person who deserves, then I'm going to lose it anyways. So help me become that person that deserves to have the things that has done enough to be able to deserve what you give me. And we do this thing where what we call, I said, be, do, have. That's the book I'm writing, right? We try to have first, then we try to do the things so that we can have it. So, and then this is a story of mine that I told in the book. I said, there was a time when I got a job my first job as a professor at the university. And I'm still working at the high school, so I'm making twice as much money. But so I think I'm a baller, right? I think I'm kingpin. I'm this dude that's doing everything. And so I go to the BMW dealership and I buy myself a BMW, right? And I'm going there, I'm going to get a 3 Series. The salesman convinces me that I need a 7 Series. And so it's a used one, but I come out with the 50IL, which is their flagship. Now, at the time, there wasn't cell phones, but there was a cell phone in the car, right? $1 and something a minute. But I drive to the university, and instead of going to a parking spot, I drive around for 20 minutes with my windows down, my music playing, and waving to people that I don't know, like I know, like I'm the deal, right? Like I'm making all this money. I'm not making the money. I can afford that car, right? Like I'm going to class down in San Diego, and I'm sleeping in the car on the way back because I can't afford a hotel room. But I look good, right? I looked real. I had the right rims, I had everything. But I hadn't become the person. I have the item, they let me get it on credit. Now I'm trying to do stuff to make more money, which I'm not doing enough, but I never became, I wasn't that time, became that person during that time who should have been driving that BMW. And how many of us do that all the time? How many of us go have because our country, our world lets us have it, and we're not ready for it because we haven't had the person that would serve people, right? I wasn't serving nobody but me at that point. Whew. Gary, I was acting like
Yeah,
somebody
it's
right?
it's crazy, people trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying to live a fake life. I hate fake life. I love being authentic. Uh, and social media has actually helped to amplify the concept of fake life.
Anyway,
You thought it was bad in your days? uh,
yeah.
it's severe. But individuals like myself, we don't get moved, like we see them, we know them, they try to paint a life that, they cannot afford, they cannot keep up to on social media, right? Why? It makes no sense, I always say I don't try to impress anybody, I don't try to impress anybody. You're the only person I want to impress is myself. I'm sorry if I don't impress you. I'm sorry. If you want to get impressed, go and check my LinkedIn profile. And if you're not impressed, then sorry again.
And you don't listen because it's so. And I teach podcasting. And I think it's a great way to increase your skills as far as a communicator. It's a great way, with Podmatch, you can monetize it right away. It's a great way to learn about new cultures and new people. And it's better than handing out flyers and doing some of the things we used to do in marketing before. But I'll come across people, since women are more than men, that they'll go, I can't see myself on screen. What if somebody looks at me? And I'm like, people are looking at you all day long. You're all worried about this outward appearance. But people are listening to the podcast to look at you. People listen to podcasts because They want to either learn from you or grow from you or take that content and, in their lives. They're not doing, and if they are doing it to compare themselves with you and say, I'm better because I look better than she does. Ooh, that's a false sense. That person who's saying that, they're in for a lot of hurt. You need to show up authentically. You need to give what God has blessed you and the skills that God has blessed you with. And it doesn't matter how beautiful you are. I mean, I'm not saying don't show up, but I'm saying if you're just not going on, you're doing your calling right. There's somebody on the other end of that life could change because you showed up, and you're not showing up
Exactly.
because of the way that you look.
It
And
makes
maybe
no
it's
sense.
like, oh my gosh, no, you need to show up because that other person needs you. That's why you need to show up, not because of how somebody else is going to perceive you to look. They don't know you. They'll never meet you. They'll never see you. They'll never be in the same state as you.
I'm
And
like,
you're worried
so
about they're not even probably in the same country. And you're worried, and you think you're worried about how they are perceiving you? Come on now.
like everybody has a life to live. Like people don't even think about you.
Yeah.
So
They're thinking about
why are
themselves.
you worried?
They're thinking about you. Well, I'm thinking about what he thinks about me. They're not thinking about you. And if they are, let them think all day long. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh.
Like they don't pay your bills, so why are you worried? I tell people that the world does not revolve around you. Remember, you're just a microcosm of that macrocosm, right? So learn to be humble and learn to mind your business and mind the business that pays you, right? And make an impact, leave the world a better place than you actually met it. So it's a mindset. And I always say that poverty and wealth, you know, begin with your mindset.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So I might not have money in my bank account today, but I am a wealthy man that has a cash flow constraint. That's a mentality,
That's the mindset.
right?
Yeah.
And there might be another person who has, quite a lot of money, but they have the scarcity mindset. And they feel like, oh, I am not enough, I am not enough. There will always be a bigger dog. There will always be somebody that has more money than you. Like, just learn to believe in yourself and believe in your God and believe that everything will be provided for you and you'll be okay. Philippians 4:13, Philippians 4:19. you know,
Walk.
uh, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. The Lord shall provide my needs through his riches and glory in Christ Jesus. Simple. Like, I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Whew. Well, I got a few more minutes left, and then I want to. We got to do this again. I'm gonna have you on my podcast,
Definitely,
and we're gonna
definitely.
have this.
Please book the part two. But before you leave, do you have a word of advice, for young people out there? Because a lot of young people out there are suffering from an identity crisis and lack of self-awareness.
I think a lot of people just don't know whose they are,
Yeah.
and until we know first, we know whose we are, then we can find out who we are. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
like you said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, according to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where young people get caught up, is they get caught up in this, I'm not enough. I'm not able to. I can't do. But realize God put you on this earth for a purpose. And when you can find your purpose and you can thrive inside of your purpose, the skies open up with the things that can happen to you. And so many folks, especially young folks, have believed that somebody else tries to tell them who they are. They tell them who they are by the clothes that they say that they should wear, or they tell them by the job that they say that they should get, or they tell them who they are by the things that they do on a daily basis. And so when you start discovering and experiencing who God has you to be, then everything else changes. Now, and the one thing that I don't think a lot of young people do that they should do is and it comes to personal development, reading, associations, and the environments that they put themselves in. 20% of your time, of your waking time, should be working on you, not on being entertained by others. because entertainment is an anesthesia. It's a distraction into what your real purpose is. And I'm not saying don't be entertained, but if you don't have enough money to even ride the subway, but you're spending money at a athletic event cheering on somebody else who's making millions of dollars, then you kind of have the wrong priority. You need to spend that money on working on you so that you can be better. I'm not saying that person's important. I love sports. I played sports. I coach sports. But I'm not putting another man's name on my back when my family is suffering. I'm not going to know more statistics about that football player or that, athlete, bicycle rider, or whatever it is, that I know about my own kids. I need to make sure that I got my priorities set. I don't need to watch TV every night, or the television every night, and watch somebody else pretend, and then why I'm trying to not work on myself. So you need to get you some books. You need to get you some things to listen to. You need to get onto YouTube. The stuff is free now, to be able to improve yourself. But 20%, that's my formula, at least 20% of your time, needs to be working on you, and everything else changes.
I love that. I think one of the books that shaped my life, growing up, the first book my father ever gave me was Think and Grow Rich. And
Napoleon Hill.
yeah,
Yes.
Napoleon Hill. And I did read another book called Invest Your Youthful Years. Yeah, you have to invest those youthful years because they come by very, very quickly. And you look back and say, where did my 20s go?
Let's talk again. I can't wait. I got to run. My wife's standing there waiting for me to head on out.
Love and respect
Yes.
to you. And of course, see you soon on part 2.
Yes.
And please help me tell the audience to show love, subscribe, so that I can have you back again, because I'm working very hard. It's 12:15 a.m. here in the UK, and I'm talking to Dr. B in America.
Thank you for taking the time to be here. Go to his podcast, watch his episodes. They are amazing. And so we look forward to talking to you next week. I say at the end of every one of my shows, you're God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. Make sure you allow him to. So you guys have
okay. Thank you very much. Whoa, see you soon.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thank you.